We did our project on radiation, and radiation is very real and it is all around us. In fact, you're currently being bombarded by radiation. It might be coming from the sun and various electronic devices you own, or even food in your kitchen. A radiation can be defined as a transmission of energy from a body in the form of waves or particles. There are also different types of radiation, and we are going to cover some basic terms. There's ionization, which is the process in which an atom either loses or gains electrons. There's also a difference between ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation, is that ionization radiation has energy enough to strip electrons off of atoms, and non-ionizing radiation does not have enough energy to strip electrons off of atoms. The causes of radiation pollution are constituted by various human activities.
Nuclear weapons are one of the biggest causes of radiation.
TVs are also another form of radiation. TV sets and computer monitors that contain cathode, right?
Cathodes.
Cathode ray tube are capable of creating low-level X-rays, but the FDA also requires all TV sets to be sold in the U.S. to be tested and to make sure that they do not exceed a safe level of X-ray emission.
Gas used for cooking, heating, and other purposes may up your exposure to radiation. But again, the amounts tend to be some small that you won't harm your health.
Now we're going to talk about the effects of radiation. Ionizing radiation has sufficient energy to cause chemical changes in cells and damage them. Some cells may die or become abnormal, either temporarily or permanently. By damaging the genetic material, the DNA, contained in the body's cells, radiation can cause cancer. Fortunately, our bodies are extremely efficient at repairing cell damage. The extent of the damage to the cells depends upon the amount and duration of the exposure as well as the organs exposed. A very large amount of radiation exposure, also known as acute exposure, can cause sickness or even death within hours of days. Such acute exposure are extremely rare. Acute exposure is an exposure to an amount of radiation all at once or from multiple exposures in a short period of time. In most cases, a large acute exposure to radiation causes both immediate and delayed effects. For cancer, delayed effects, cancer or death, and immediate effects such as radiation sickness. There is also something called exposure pathways, and this is a type of radiation received by alpha, beta, gamma, and X-ray. The way a person is exposed to external versus internal, and for how long a person is exposed are all important in estimating health effects. The risk from exposure also depends on the energy of the radiation it emits, the activity of how often it emits the radiation, the rate at which the body metabolizes and eliminates the radionuclide, and where the radionuclide concentrates in the body and how long it stays there.
You should do that again. Can radiation even be good for you?
Well, Lorenzo, there are some benefits to radiation. Well, agricultural radiation is beneficial because radiation has increased the production and volume of grain and cereals. Stalks of these crops are labeled with radioactive isotopes, increasing their growth. This use of radioactivity is helping to
Oh my
relieve
God,
famine
Caroline.
in third world countries. Environmental science radiation is used to measure pollutants in water and river, and they are called radioactive tracers. Radiation also helped in producing electricity through nuclear plants. 60% of the world's electricity is produced in nuclear plants, and in the US, 109 nuclear plants contribute 22% of the power grid. Radiation plays a big role in the medical field, from X-rays to MRIs and radioactive traces. Radiation can also be a treatment of cancer and can be directed to kill cancer cells and might reduce or even wipe out the cancer. So these are some of the benefits of radiation. It turns out that it plays a big role in society. Without it, who knows what could happen. So in the US, environmental standards designed to protect the human health from radiation are issued by the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, along with the guidance of federal agencies related to the radiation exposure standard limits. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, is a federal agency responsible for implementing some of the EPA's regulation and standards. The Department of Energy, DOE, implements the standards of their facilities. So, what can you do to help prevent radiation pollution? So, you can do safe storage. Radioactive pollution needs to be stored in specialized containers which do not break easily and which do not allow radiation to seep out. You can also use an alternative source of energy. Seeking alternatives to nuclear energy will reduce the number of nuclear power plants in the world and reduce the risks that are associated with radioactive material. Radioactive material is present in various places in a nuclear power plant. Radioactive materials are used to produce nuclear power. Also, the waste that is produced by nuclear power plants is also radioactive.